Here's something that sounds impossible. The most capable AI assistant on the planet, Claude, costs you absolutely nothing to start using. Zero. And yet, according to a fresh Engadget report published just yesterday, the average free user burns through their entire daily allowance in roughly 45 minutes of real work. 45 minutes. Then the shutters come down until the clock resets. Think of it like a theme park that lets you in the front gate for free, hands you a wristband, and then quietly limits you to a handful of rides before politely walking you back to the exit. The gate is free, the good rides are not. In 2026, Anthropic, the company behind Claude, has drawn a sharper line than ever between what you get for nothing and what you pay for. And most people have no idea where that line actually sits until they smack straight into it mid-task. Maybe you're halfway through drafting an important email. Maybe you're deep in a coding problem, and suddenly you've reached your limit. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to map out exactly what's free in Claude this year, what quietly isn't, how much the paid tiers really cost, and the legitimate workarounds savvy users are quietly relying on to stretch the free plan further than Anthropic probably intended. Because the gap between free and paid in 2026 is bigger and weirder than the headlines are telling you. Let's pull it apart, piece by piece. To understand the 2026 rules, you have to rewind a little. When Claude first launched to the public, the free plan was almost absurdly generous. Anthropic was fighting for attention against ChatGPT, and the easiest way to win users was to hand out access like free samples at a supermarket. Use as much as you want, barely a limit in sight. That era is over. As Claude got smarter, and as running these models got eye-wateringly expensive, the company tightened the tap. Every single message you send to Claude fires up banks of specialized chips inside a data center, and those chips cost real money to run, second by second. One detailed conversation can cost Anthropic more in electricity and hardware time than you'd ever guess. Multiply that by tens of millions of users, and the free buffet becomes financially impossible. So in 2026, Anthropic restructured everything around a simple idea: give everyone a genuine taste of the best model, but meter it tightly. The free tier now runs on a rolling message limit that resets every few hours, not a fixed daily count, which catches people completely off guard. It's less you get 100 messages a day, and more you get a small bucket that slowly refills. And the size of that bucket shrinks when their servers are busy. So the same free plan can feel generous on a quiet Sunday and stingy on a Monday morning. Which raises the obvious question: what exactly fits inside that bucket? Let's get specific about what 2026 actually hands you for free. First, the headline: free users now get access to Claude's strong mid-tier model, not the absolute flagship, but genuinely capable for everyday writing, summarizing, brainstorming, and light coding. That alone would have been science fiction a few years ago. You also get the core chat interface, file uploads so you can drop in a PDF or a spreadsheet and ask questions about it, and basic image understanding: point Claude at a photo and it'll describe or analyze it. All free. And here's where it gets interesting. The free plan measures you not in messages, but in something closer to effort. A short question barely moves the needle, but upload a 40-page document and ask for a deep summary, and you might burn a quarter of your allowance in one shot. Because the model has to read every single word. Think of it like a phone plan that charges by how hard the call makes you think, not how many calls you make. Anthropic calls the underlying unit a token, basically a chunk of text about 3/4 of a word long. Free users get a limited pool of these tokens that refills on a rolling window, often cited around every 5 hours. Hit empty and you wait. Crucially, the free tier resets faster during off-peak hours and throttles harder during peak demand. So the free plan isn't one fixed thing, it breathes with the server load. But what happens the moment you actually need more? Let's make this concrete with the situations real people run into every day. Picture a university student at midnight, feeding Claude their lecture notes to build a study guide before an exam. The first few chapters fly by, then 3 chapters from the end, the limit hits, and the reset is 2 hours away, well past when they wanted to be asleep. That's the free tier biting at the worst possible moment. Now picture a freelance developer using Claude to debug a tricky piece of software. Coding chews through tokens fast, because the model has to hold huge chunks of code in its head at once. A developer doing serious work can drain the free allowance in well under an hour. There's also a hard wall most newcomers never see coming. Claude Code, Anthropic's tool for letting the AI write and edit entire code bases on your computer, is essentially a paid experience. The free tier gives you a taste through the chat window, but the genuinely powerful agentic coding, where Claude runs commands and fixes its own mistakes, lives behind a subscription. Same with the largest context windows, the ability to feed in book-length documents, and priority access when servers are slammed. Free users get bumped to the back of the queue during busy spells, sometimes waiting noticeably longer for each reply. It's the digital version of general boarding versus priority boarding, same plane, very different experience. So if free has all these ceilings, here's where the real comparison starts. So let's line the tiers up side by side, because the 2026 pricing tells the whole story. The free plan, as we've covered, is your tasting menu. Step up to Claude Pro, which runs around $20 a month, and the bucket gets dramatically bigger. Anthropic quotes Pro users roughly 5 times the usage of the free tier, plus access to the more powerful models, larger document uploads, and the ability to actually use Claude Code for real coding work. For most writers, students, and solo professionals, Pro is the sweet spot. Then there's the heavy-duty tier, Claude Max, which comes in 2 flavors, one around $100 a month and a bigger one near $200 a month. Max is aimed at power users who basically live inside Claude all day. It offers up to 20 times the usage of Pro, the highest priority when servers are busy, and the most generous limits on agentic coding. Think of free as a bicycle, Pro as a reliable car, and Max as a freight truck, same roads, wildly different payloads. And then sitting outside the subscriptions entirely is the developer API, where you pay per token used with no monthly fee at all. That's how apps and businesses bake Claude into their own products, paying only for what they consume, sometimes thousands of dollars a month, sometimes just a few. The tiers look simple on paper, but there's a catch in the fine print that trips up even experienced users. Let me show you the stakes. Here's where the stakes get real, and it goes well beyond your wallet. The first thing nobody tells you is that the tier you choose can quietly affect your data. Across 2026, Anthropic updated its policies so that, depending on your settings, free conversations may be used to help train and improve future models unless you opt out. Paid tiers and the API generally come with firmer privacy commitments and business-grade data handling. So free can carry a hidden cost paid not in dollars, but in data. If you're pasting in anything sensitive, client work, personal details, unreleased ideas, that distinction matters enormously. The second implication is about dependence. As more people fold Claude into their daily routine, writing, coding, planning, researching, the free limits start shaping behavior. People learn to ration their questions, to batch their work, to think twice before hitting send. We're watching an entire generation quietly internalize the rhythm of an AI's usage meter, the way earlier generations learned to watch their mobile data. And the third, biggest implication, this free versus paid line is becoming the new digital divide. Students and workers who can afford $20 a month get a sharper, faster, more capable assistant. Those who can't get the throttled version that stops mid-task. When AI becomes this useful, access to the better tier starts translating directly into an advantage at school and at work. That's a genuinely big deal. So how do you get the most out of the free plan without paying a cent? Let me walk you through it. All right, let's get practical, because there are completely legitimate ways to squeeze far more out of the free tier. First, batch your questions. Because the limit is about effort and tokens, 10 tiny separate messages can cost more overhead than one well-structured message that asks for everything at once. Plan your prompt, front-load your context, and ask for the full answer in a single shot. Second, watch your uploads. Feeding Claude a giant document eats your allowance fast. So trim it. Paste only the 3 pages that matter instead of the whole 40-page report, and you'll stretch your bucket dramatically. Third, time your heavy work for off-peak hours. Remember, the free tier breathes with server load late at night or early morning in your time zone. The limits tend to loosen and replies come back faster. Fourth, use the rolling reset to your advantage. Since the free pool refills on a roughly 5-hour window rather than a hard daily cap. Spreading a big project across 2 sessions, a few hours apart, can effectively double what you get done in a day, for free. Fifth, Lean on the free tier for thinking and drafting, and save any paid tool for the final heavy lift only if you truly need it. And finally, keep your conversations focused. Starting a fresh chat for a new topic stops Claude from rereading a long, irrelevant history every time, which silently burns tokens. Master those 6 habits, and the free plan goes much, much further than Anthropic's defaults suggest. So where does all this leave you? So here's what all of this actually means for you right now. Claude in 2026 is still one of the most generous free AI tools available, genuinely powerful, genuinely useful, and completely usable without spending a cent, as long as you understand the rules of the game. What's free? The core chat, a strong mid-tier model, file uploads, image understanding, and a rolling token bucket that refills every few hours. What isn't? The flagship model at full tilt, serious agentic coding through Claude Code, the biggest document windows, priority during busy periods, and the firmer privacy guarantees. Pro at around $20 a month roughly quintuples your limits, and Max scales that up to 20 times over for the true power users. The smartest move for most people is simple. Ride the free tier hard, use the batching and off-peak tricks we covered, and only upgrade the day you genuinely feel the ceiling slowing down your real work, not a moment before. Don't pay for a freight truck when a bicycle gets you to the shops. And keep an eye on those data settings too, because the cheapest plan can cost you in other ways. If this breakdown saved you from a surprise paywall or an accidental upgrade, do me one favor, follow for daily AI news. Because these limits shift constantly and I track every change so you don't have to. The next big pricing shakeup is already brewing and you'll want to know before it hits. I'll see you in the next one.